Hello, somebody asked me to do a video talking about general breeding. Excuse the fact I'm in a bathroom today trying to find somewhere there where it's quiet and there's not dogs or children or something else going on or hoovers going. It's a really busy day today, so I'm hiding in my ensuite to do this video. Okay, so breeding your dog. Are you thinking about breeding your dog? You've got to think about lots of different things. First of all is time-wise. Do you have the time? Not the expertise, because you can learn the basics, but do you have the time to bring up a litter? You shouldn't be leaving your girl alone pretty much the last 10 days of her pregnancy, and you should be at home for the puppies. So if you're out working 5 days a week all day, you can't have a litter of puppies. You really should be home as much as possible during that time. They take up a lot of your time and they take up space. Do you have somewhere in your house? Because a little puppy pen or a whelping box is fine at first, but it's not going to be fine for the 8 weeks, especially if you've got a larger litter or a larger breed. So you need to make sure you've got the space as well inside your home. And then, can you afford the facilities? Can you afford to get a decent puppy pen? Can you afford to get the lino to go down underneath if you've got flooring that needs to be covered underneath the puppy pen? Can you afford the expense of bringing them up and feeding decent food throughout the 8 weeks, not just what you can buy in your local supermarket? And then, can you afford if something goes wrong when you come to breed? If you need a cesarean section, if mum gets very poorly, if you need veterinary care, do you have a backup plan? Because if you don't, if you're really, if you're skint and you're hoping to do this to make money, you need to go in thinking you might not make a penny. You might come out worse off. It happens to us in litters. So you've got to think about all those things. So once you've got all that sorted, then you need to do your research for what do I need to be able to breed my dog. So first of all, your dog needs to be healthy. She needs to be healthy, a good temperament, and not just in general health. You've been to the vets and the vet says she's fine. You need to see what she's carrying. So that's where you do your relevant DNA tests for your breed. So if she is carrying any undesirable genetics, then when you go to find your stud dog, you need to make sure that he's been fully DNA tested for the same and that he's not carrying the same undesirable. Because if they're both carriers and unaffected, when you put two carriers together, you're going to get some that actually have the double gene, which is where they're predisposed. It doesn't mean they're definitely going to develop it, but they're going to be predisposed for it. Then you need to make sure your girl is a good temperament, like I said, and that she's going to be the kind of girl that's going to enjoy having puppies. This shouldn't be something you do just because financially you want to do it or because you just want to keep a puppy. You need to make sure she's going to enjoy it. Does she have that kind of temperament? If you've got all them boxes ticked, then you're moving on to the next one. So you've got to research, what do I need for my girl for the litter? What other things do I have to buy? What kind of food am I going to feed? Do I have everything in ready for delivery? So in for delivery, you need to have things for the possibility of having to hand feed yourself, to bottle feed. You need to have a heat pad for the puppies. You need to have your whelping box, your puppy pen. I would have at home some calcium things for during labour and on the run up, but you need to be doing your research to find out, how much do I give my girl? When do I give my girl? Does she need this? Do I have a good vet? Is my vet's on call? Have I told my vets my dog's due? So you need to think of all those things. You need an umbilical cord clamp. You need a pair of sharp scissors. And I usually put them in a cup and boil the kettle and put them in boiling water before it comes to using them at delivery. You need to make sure you've got lots and lots of old towel or cotton bedding for delivery because it's quite messy and you need to keep changing and changing and changing and making sure your girl and the puppies aren't sitting on wet bedding. Then again, from 10 days before, I take mine to bed with me and they're in a crate beside my bed so I don't miss anything and I know the signs, what I'm looking for. And then as soon as they think they're coming into labour, there's different ways you can double check. You can go to the vets if you're unsure. You can take your girl's temperature to see if it's dropped by 2 degrees. It usually goes down to about 36.5, but it's a good idea to know what your girl's normal temperature is. So take it, maybe once a week during the pregnancy. And I treat my girls as pregnant from the day of the mating. So once they're mated, I make sure they're eating a good quality puppy food if I was feeding that kind of food, but mine are actually on raw. So, and I make sure they're getting a bit of everything. Some girls get a bit of morning sickness. Some girls don't eat very well during pregnancy. And normally I don't abide fussy dogs. I go, if you don't eat your dinner, tough. But if they're pregnant, you've got to abide them. This is where I go, okay, you've got my number, you know, because you've expecting babies, that I'm going to give you something else. And that's when you've got to start, you know, maybe cooking for them, adding bits in to make sure they are eating enough and that they don't drop their glucose. And then keep an eye on them the whole of pregnancy, because lots of things can go on in pregnancy. So you need to be checking after mating for quite a few weeks, usually up to about 6 weeks, for their discharge. Is it green? Is it smelly? Is she poorly? You know, checking for all these things. If ideally you want to have a scan as well around about 4.5 weeks in to make sure she is pregnant and that she doesn't have a pyometra. So think of all those things, and all this is a cost as well. So you've got to plan for all this financially. So great, you've got through all that. You know your girl's pregnant, she hasn't had a pyometra, and then you've got to make sure you keep her glucose high, she's eating little and often, but don't overfeed her. Some girls go the opposite and want to eat and eat and eat, and if you overfeed them too much, you end up with fat puppies that they can't deliver, and she won't be as healthy because she's fat. So keep her a nice size, so keep an eye on her weight. Towards the end, really slow down your walks, don't have them charging about off lead. I personally would never ever vaccinate a pregnant girl, or even a girl if we don't know she's pregnant but she's been mated. I never vaccinate in those 9 weeks, and I never flea them unless I absolutely have to, if they have fleas, and then I'll use a really basic spot on. I'd never use a tablet form. And if I need to worm them, I worm them with Panicure and nothing else towards the end of the pregnancy. So you should make sure all these things are covered. The girl's great to go beforehand, so you don't have to do any of this. So that just keeps everything really safe. So then delivery time, it can vary massively. Majority of girls will let you know that they're going into labour. So they will start nesting, sometimes even a few days before. So they'll look for somewhere, they'll start, you know, going behind things in your house, and they'll make a bed, they'll start digging, and when it really kicks off, they'll be digging, panting, often pulling at the bedding in their mouth, maybe ripping it. You know, so watch for all these signs. And then when it gets to pushing time, it's obvious, you will know. Their tail lifts and you can see them actually pushing. Now, what's normal, I say normal, they're all different, but generally what's normal is they will niggle on for quite a while. Some girls even up to 24 hours before they get to the pushing stage. And then when they're pushing, I never let my girls push any longer than about, depending on the breed, I'd say half an hour, unless you've got a bull breed, then I would let them push a little bit longer, but generally no more than half an hour, especially if it's decent pushes. If it's half-hearted pushes, sometimes they can do that for a few hours before the pup's actually there. You might get a little push and they stop, but if it's proper pushes, you know, then bring your timing down, think, right, they're really pushing. And if it's any more than 15 minutes then, once they're really, really pushing, you know that puppy's stuck and you need to have your vet on call and you're going to go in. Now, sometimes vets make a mistake. If your dog hasn't delivered any puppies yet and they're struggling and they're pushing, they will give your dog a shot of oxytocin to kind of push the labour on. Normally, if you get oxytocin before you've delivered one puppy, the first puppy will be dead, because the oxytocin makes them contract really hard, and if that puppy is stuck in that canal, it'll contract so hard that it kills the puppy off. So I personally never give oxytocin injections till at least one puppy's out. So always bear that in mind when you go to the vets. If you're in that situation, the vet thinks she needs a lot of help, you may be looking at cesarean section then. So then, let's say your first puppy's been born, it's great. Before the puppy's born, sometimes you'll get a water sac balloon coming out. That's absolutely normal, and it's okay if nothing else happens for ages after that. You are looking out for your danger signs of lots of blood or lots of green gunk. If that happens, you're going to ring your vet. Experienced breeders might not ring the vet straight away, they'll know what's going on, but if you're a new person, you see anything like that, you go straight to the vets. At the moment, you've got to think paramount is your bitch's health. You're thinking about her first, okay? But it's all going to plan, let's say, and then she pushes out the first puppy. Majority of them will come down head first. If they come down breech, back legs first, doesn't mean they can't deliver them, they can. But sometimes it's a little bit harder, and you'll sometimes see them straining for longer and they will get the puppy out, so its hips are out, but it's still maybe stuck. Now, the girl is not shaped. If you looked at her bum, it's not like that. When you go in, she's shaped like that. So if the back legs of the puppy are hanging out there, that means the puppy is on a curve coming round, okay? Now, if the puppy is facing so its ribs are on that curve and its back's on this side, it's possibility there's a bone here that its ribs are caught on that bone. So what you have to do then is, because that puppy can't go back up, is you gently, with some lube, so have some lube handy, slide your finger up on the inside and get between, if you can, the puppy and that bone. And then with your other hand, gently pull round that way and you will get that puppy out. Got to be really gentle. Absolute worst case scenario, and I would never tell a new breeder to do this, is if it's so stuck and the puppy is dead, it cannot go back up. You would go to the vets and the vet would take it out in pieces. And then there was probably cesarean the rest of the litter for you. But let's go back to it's all going normal. First puppy's out, mum's done really well. Quite often when the first puppy comes out, it'll be inside its sack. It's okay if it's not, if the sack's come off on the way out, but most will be inside their sack. When they come out of the sack, the puppy will still be very close to mum's bum because it's attached by its cord, and a lot of the time the placenta hasn't let go yet and the cord hasn't come down. That's quite normal. And if it's a new girl, often they will panic when that happens and they'll spin in circles. And sometimes when they're spinning in circles, the cord will rip off right at the stomach and then you have a massive bleed, which is an emergency when you need your umbilical cord clamped. So you would clamp, if mum has ripped it off flush to the stomach, so there is no cord to clamp, you would clamp that bit of skin and go straight to your vets. But let's go back to it, it's going normal. She's not had a panic, it's come down, it's in its sack. I want you to open up the sack with your hands, make sure your hands are clean or have gloves on, open up the sack, have a towel ready, make sure the puppy can breathe, rub everything. And what I personally do is I don't let my mums do their cords to make sure that we don't have any really bad bleeders and to make sure they don't cause umbilical hernias, because most umbilical hernias are caused by mum pulling at the cord and faffing with it. So if the puppy's still very close and the cord's still inside mum and it's not coming down, I would gently just give the cord a little tug, use your fingers and tug, not at the puppy end, at mum's end. And if it won't come, that's fine. Keep mum nice and calm, leave the puppy attached, let mum lick the puppy, keep her calm. And then try again in 30 seconds, give a little pull, and eventually that cord will come down and the placenta will come with it. When that happens, you're going to clamp your puppy with umbilical cord clamps about that much away from their stomach, and then with your scissors then cut it away from mum. Mum will probably eat the placenta and the cord. After that, that's absolutely fine. And I leave my cord on the puppy for about 30 seconds, then I'll take it off and check it. If it's not bleeding, then I'll give them to mum. Now if you've got a puppy come out that isn't breathing, okay, you've got your towel, you really quite roughly rub them, make sure you're clearing around the mouth. And if you've got one that really isn't breathing, often it's because it's full of all the snot and the fluid from inside. So then I stand up, I'll stand up now to make it obvious. I have the puppy in my hand, hold them nice and tight, and often with my fingers, the head will be there, that's over the shoulders, then I'm holding the body, and I will swing backwards and forward with the puppy upside down, and the snot will come out. To make sure you keep wiping with the towel, so you're getting all the snot out of the puppy. And then keep rubbing. You can give them a very gentle blow where you put your mouth over the nose and the mouth and you'll see the chest rise. It has to be very gentle, otherwise you'll burst their lungs. Now, it depends on how dead that puppy is. If it's not dead and it's just had a traumatic birth, you will get that puppy going. But obviously, if it's dead, I would usually work on a maximum of 10 minutes. And then if nothing, yeah, it was obviously stillborn before it came out. It's very obvious if something's been dead for a few days. When you rub them, it doesn't feel right. Their skin sometimes will lift off on the face, things like that, and that's obviously dead. If that happens, you leave the puppy. Take the puppy out of the sight of mum quite quickly because she'll try and get to it. But these are the worst case scenarios. Majority of deliveries, nice and simple, especially if you've got a simple breed, nothing like a bulldog, or sometimes Chihuahuas, things like that can be difficult. So let's go along with it's all going great, okay? So we've clamped the cord, puppy's not bleeding, took the clamp off, we've given it to mum, put against the belly. Often new mums can be a little bit frightened of the new puppy. They're going, what the hell is that and what has happened? And they might move away. That's fine, just quiet, calm, keep putting the puppy by the belly, and you need to have your room nice and quiet. Don't have the whole household in there, certainly no strangers, all the kids, just you and your dog. Nice, calm, quiet, and she will get better with each one and she'll start to calm down and she will feed. Now, I always say to everybody, you think you're being very kind when you get this gorgeous, lovely, fluffy bed for your girl and you put it somewhere in the corner of a room with her babies and you give mum free run to get in and out as she pleases. For majority of girls, that doesn't work very well because most girls want to feel protected. They want to feel like there's a barricade, something around them where nothing's going to come along and touch the babies, especially if you've got other dogs in the house. You can't allow them anywhere near. It's going to massively distress mum. Sometimes to the point where they can kill their own babies. And not just that, some mums don't spend enough time with their babies. They're out too often, the puppies get cold, and you end up with them being dehydrated or dying from being cold. So I always keep mine in a whelping area where they're shut in, but make sure you keep letting mum out for a wee. And in the first kind of 4 weeks, mum should be in there all the time. Apart from coming out for a wee or a little bit of a fuss, she's back in. She needs to be with them babies. When you start weaning at 4 weeks old, that's when you start to let mum spend more and more time out. So you're building it up and building it up and building it up. So then they're completely gone off the puppies by 8 weeks old, unless you've got a really small breed that needs longer. Generally, from 8 weeks old, mum would be off them. Give me 1 second, somebody's wanting my attention. It's here, sorry. There we go. Ooh. See, even in the bathroom, somebody still wants me. I thought I was hiding. Anyway, where were we? Yes, till 4 weeks old, mum stays in. I personally, as well, don't walk my mummies on communal ground, but we're very lucky because of where we live. We have a lot of land that's just ours, but I don't like walking them on communal ground when they're feeding their babies once I start getting them back out again at 4 weeks past delivery, in case they bring back some awful germs on their feet. But if you are in a situation like most people will be, where you only have a small garden or not lots of place for the mummies, if you are taking them out, make sure when you come back from your walk, wash their feet, wash their bellies, things like that, and don't take them high risk areas like in your park. Try and walk on just pavement, so they're not bringing back too many germs to their babies. You need to worm your babies from the age of 2 weeks, and that's every 2 weeks until they leave. Majority of people, I would say, once the puppies are a couple of days old, take them and mum, maybe even a day old, once mum's settled, to the vets for a good checkup, because you don't know what you're looking at. Make sure everything's okay. And I would recommend in the early days weighing your puppies every day, making sure that they are gaining weight. And your back nipples near the back legs usually have the most milk. So if you've got anybody small, make sure you're rotating and putting your small puppies onto that back nipple so they're getting more milk. And if anybody's getting pushed out, you need to keep rotating, or you might have to top up. There's lots of things that can happen, but we all hope for the very straightforward basic delivery. Mum's brilliant and she does everything for 4 weeks for us. But if she doesn't, there's lots of things you could do to help. But you've got to, first of all, before you think about breeding your dog, can you financially afford to, especially if things go wrong, and do you have the time? It's very intense in the first few weeks for you. Then it has a calm down stage, provided mum's doing a good job, where you don't have to do quite as much. And then from about 4 or 5 weeks old, it's very intense again, or it should be. You should be spending a lot of time with them, introducing them to new things, playing with them, and it's lots and lots of cleaning. And it does stink, it does stink. So you've got to think of all these things before you breed. And do you have any idea, is your dog desirable? Are you going to be able to find them new homes? Do you have people waiting for them already? Do friends and family want them? You are responsible for these babies. If you can't find them homes, they are yours. So think of worst case scenario. If my dog has 10 puppies, it's a Labrador, and I can't find homes for half of them, you then have 5 puppies plus your girl. They're your dogs. So you need to really think. And you also need to think, if you are advertising them, where are you going to advertise them, and how are you going to vet your new owners, and are you going to be responsible for them for life if something happens? It's good to use a contract to state that they come back to you if anything happens. You need to be responsible for the babies you bring into the world. I hope all of that helps. We do have a couple of videos we've done before of actual delivery, opening the sacks, cutting the cords, that you can find, but I'm hoping that covers all the topics of breeding that people wanted me to cover. Okay, thanks, bye.